Like, you know what? If someone's going to dump millions of dollars into documentaries to go on Netflix to bash agriculture, well, I want to be the guy who's going to say, I'm going to pour millions of dollars into creating content that's going to be for agriculture. You know, if that's the battle that the world wants to play, then I'll go up to bat.
All right. So here we go, another episode of the Agriculture Podcast, and we appreciate you joining along and swinging by and listening to us each week. We have a new episode available each week, and hopefully, as time goes, we'll have more episodes available. Today, we're going to talk about Clayton, our resident producer of our podcast, and he started, I don't know, it's in August here at the farm as, I reached out to him and asked if he'd be interested in helping us with a YouTube channel, and this podcast was actually his idea. It's probably his podcast, to be honest with you, but he is, like, if you're wondering why my social media stepped its game up, it's because of this guy right here. And if you're wondering about him and how you have access to his material, or how you, how he can help your business, today is the episode that we're going to talk about what he does, his vision for the future, what brought him into agriculture, and just a little bit about his life and vision. So, with that being said, I'll let him introduce himself, and we'll get on with the show.
Yeah, you guys have heard me talk plenty before, but yeah, I'm Clayton. I run Atlas Media Solutions. It's my full-time gig. Denton Farms kind of stuff kind of actually just fits under that umbrella, so this is just a part of my full-time job. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So, where to start? I did not grow up on a farm, guys. I am not a farm kid. I did not grow up driving a tractor. I did not grow up, helping Leighton harvest or ditching school to go do all these things. Like, I had actually zero agriculture background until I turned, I didn't even know what a combine was until I was like 16, when someone from Iowa told me what a combine was. And I was like, very interesting. What else?
So, tell them first where you're from exactly, because I think now you currently live in Iowa, and people have probably seen you on social media driving back and forth and through all your travels from Iowa, but that's not originally where you're from.
Well, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't like to talk about it. I'm from California. I'm one of those guys who thankfully was able to get out, which, looking back now, I'm like, well, agriculture is actually California's primary source of revenue. That state is absolutely dominated by farms and ranches. Nobody ever really talks about that because there's so many other things going on there. But that state itself, I would grow up, we would drive down. I grew up in Truckee, California, so up in the mountains, kind of near Nevada. We'd drive down to like the Bay Area or something, or we go down to Morro Bay or, San Diego. So we drive all across the state going to these different places, and you drive by just miles upon miles upon miles of farms, and you go through vineyards, and then you go through places like Bakersfield or Fresno, just full of dairies, more cows than the eyes can see. But yeah, I grew up in California, grew up in Truckee, so full of snow. If you guys didn't know, that's Lake Tahoe area. So Lake Tahoe, tons of snow. Everyone, when I moved to Iowa, they're like, oh, so this snow stuff must be a real big shock for you. And I'm like, well, actually, no. Like, you guys get no snow in the Midwest. I personally have plowed in like 50 plus like feet of snow in a season. Like, that doesn't sound like a real number, but it's true. Like, 50 feet of snow is not incredibly uncommon where I grew up. I think last year they had 57 or 58 feet of snow over the total course of the season. And there was one storm I plowed where it was like, over the course of 3 days, we got 7+ feet of snow. Like, we don't even use like trucks to plow there. Like, literally, it's just a massive New Holland tractor with like a 6-foot snowblower on the front of it. Like, you could stick a Prius in that thing and it would just shoot it out the top. It's crazy.
It is. If you've never been in the Lake Tahoe area, they literally can get feet of snow overnight. It's just like you can't leave the home until it's plowed out or the apartment you're in. I mean, you're literally snowbound a big part of the winter until the plow comes by. So it's a big part of that culture there. And but if talking about California in general, that is a very diverse agriculture state, and a big part of the production of the United States comes out of that state. So even though you do not have an agriculture background, those travels put you around ag a lot. And I guess that's maybe started the passion a little bit.
I not even. I look back now, and and that's part of the reason I am passionate is because I grew up in a place where you would drive by all these farms and all these ranches, and there's just such a disconnect. So you knew it was a farm. You did not care what was going on. You did not care that your food was growing there, and so that was something that just like totally blew my mind. Like looking back now, like when I started farming, I was like, oh my gosh, that entire state is just surrounded by farms. Like so much of my food is grown in a state like California. So many of my fruits, my vegetables, all these things that need that climate grown there. Dairy, so much dairy is produced in the state of California. It's ridiculous. Anyways, shortly after I graduated high school, I ended up moving to Montana for a few years. And that was kind of my first real taste of like any sort of farm life. I was not working on a ranch. I was not working on a farm, but we did. I went to a Bible college where we had herd like 30 horses that they would use in the summer for trail rides and stuff like that. And so one of my chores and responsibilities, because I had to work, was to help take care of this herd of horses every single winter. And so it was feeding hay all winter long. It was nearly every day. I would go out and I remember I used to feed horses in vans, like van shoes, like not waterproofed at all. It would be like 20 degrees out. There'd be like 3, 4 inches of snow on the ground. I'd be out there in my little skater shoes vans because I just didn't have anything else.
Right.
And we would be out there feeding hay with either a truck or a skid loader. And we would just go down. We'd have all these cut up tires, old farm tires, cut up, turned inside out. And we would just pitchfork hay from the hay bale into these. So it was all spread out. So all the horses could eat. And the smaller ones still got a chance to eat. And it was just like, I'm like, man, like that was so much work. It could have been -20, which there were times. I had bought boots at that point. I bought my first pair of cowboy boots about halfway through that winter because I was like, okay, I need something that's not Vans to walk through the snow and stuff in. So I bought these cowboy boots, and I felt like such a poser at the time. I was like, how dare I wear these? Like, I can't wear these. I'm not a real cowboy. Still not a real cowboy, but it's like, okay, first step into it. Never really got super into riding horses. I used to shoot videos for the summer camp, and we would, I probably watched a horse get saddled 300, 400 times. I could probably do it, but I'm like not confident and stuff like that. Um, yeah, so that was Montana. I got some friends who grew up in ranches, and I had the opportunity to go like actually be around some cows, like be around what an actual working ranch looked like. So that was cool. Little town of 1,000. So everyone you meet in town is like, oh, you're probably a rancher. You go to the grocery store on Sunday. It's just a bunch of old ranch trucks with like bale feeders in the back of them, just all sitting there. You go into the coffee shop, the little coffee shop there, just a bunch of old guys just sitting around at the table, chatting about the weather, chatting about cows, chatting about the meat markets. Hey, how's your year going? How much hay were you able to bale this year? All these things that like looking back, like I understand now, right over my head when I was there. It was a wild time. Yeah. So that was Montana. COVID hit. I was working in Montana still. I was doing some more mechanic work at the time. Uh, COVID hit, lost my job, also lost my place of housing. Ended up in Iowa through a very long roundabout way. I was dating a girl there who grew up in Iowa. I worked with her brother, and I was like, well, I should just move to Iowa. Like, I don't have a job. Like, I can probably find work out there. Yeah, ended up moving to Iowa, middle of COVID. Horrible time. COVID was a horrible year, guys. Um, anyways, ended up moving to Iowa, and I show up, and like 2 days later, my now ex's cousin was in need of a fence being removed on his farm. They were ripping out an old fence for a pasture and turning it into a cornfield, as we do in Iowa. And I had taken out some fence before in Montana. I was like, oh, I can do that. So I went up and I ended up tearing out about a half mile of fence that day. And the guy was really impressed with my work, as in I just didn't complain about it. You just pull out a fence, pretty easy. Lift some heavy stuff. That's about it. He's like, hey, you want to come back tomorrow? And I was like, sure. And from that day forward, I was a farmhand. It was pretty cool. Once again, had no idea what was going on. I'd never been around any sort of grain operation before. Been around cows and horses at that point a little bit, but still didn't know that much. So next day I show up. I spend half the day fixing some small engines because I had some mechanic background. And then it was like, hey, can you come help me move a herd of cows? And I was like, sure. My cowboy boots were finally going to good use, and I got to learn how to move cattle. Later on, I learned how to work cattle. So a vet comes, you put them all in a chute. You do all your vaccines and stuff. You do preg checks, things like that. You'll castrate the little steers. It was a wild time. There was so much. Not to mention, I was out there fixing fence every day. I was learning how to mow and rake hay. I'm learning to drive tractors, all these different things, and the guy I worked for, I've probably talked about him on here before, but for Iowa, he's probably one of the more, probably say, just diversified farmers I've ever met. Um, he's someone that, in Iowa, if you guys don't know, we grow corn and we grow soybeans, and we're really, really good at growing corn and soybeans. Like, that's our thing. So most guys have gotten rid of their cattle. Most guys don't have any other form of livestock. They might have pigs, but they're all kept in confinement barn. They're never going to see the light of day until they leave. So this guy still had cows. So he had his own feedlot. He had cow calf operation, tons of pastures, but also a ton of corn and soybeans. He was cover cropping before the internet even started talking about it, which is like, you know, fun fact: cover croppers, you're not that special. He's been doing it longer than you guys have been talking about it. So just all these things, like, okay, looking back, I'm like, I was lucky to be on a very diverse operation that exposed me to not only livestock, but also, doing his own hay, rotating pastures, planting cover crops after harvest. Not to mention, like, he was also running everything from some older machinery. I mean, I spent a lot of my time on a 40/20 tractor. Then I'd hop in almost a brand new 8 Series in the grain cart. It's just, there's such a wide range from, equipment from the 60s, some farming practice from the 60s, all the way up to like 2023. Okay, newer machinery, newer combine, doing all these things, like running an efficient operation. Then it's all over. You start turning cows out on corn stalks, all these different things. Just so much cool stuff going on. And it's just, I was like a sponge. My mind was just being blown every day of all the things I would see. The guy I worked for would tell me about how, all the different parts of a cow are used after they go to the sale barn, or he'd go on what corn's used for, what soybeans are used for, how the whole farm economy works. I was just like, every day my mind was absolutely blown. Yeah, I mean, it was a wild time.
So this is a great time to point out that if you're a young man or a young woman and you're like seeking something for your life, and you've considered farming, but you're like, I don't know if I can do that or not. It just goes to show you that somebody that's not from an ag background, but does have a passion for work ethic and life, can fall in with a farmer by just doing a good job one day and proving his or herself that they have work ethic and learning ability. And people notice that. People realize that you're not just there for a paycheck, that you're actually trying to do the job and do it well and learn in the process. I think people respect that, and it gives you the opportunity of maybe a new start in life. And I guess through Clayton getting introduced to ag, first with the horses and then with the cattle farmer, it gave him a vision for maybe what he had in store for later in life. And so talk about that a little bit. Like, how did you get involved in media or social media or just production in general?
Hey guys, Clayton here. I'm interrupting your podcast right now to tell you about my media company, Atlas Media Solutions, that makes this podcast possible, as well as all the Denton Farms media happen. So I'm going to play a quick ad real quick that I put together. It doesn't really explain that much, but it does sound pretty cool. So I'm going to let you guys listen to that, and afterwards I'll explain to you what the business is all about. Spend enough time on the internet these days, you start to realize there's a lot of people who don't really understand where their food comes from, what's going on. I figured, hey, rather than complaining about this problem that I feel like the agriculture industry is facing, I should do something to fix it. My name is Clayton Lind. The purpose of this business is to do one thing: serve agriculture. Thanks for listening to that, guys. I won't spend too much time explaining what Atlas Media Solutions is, but Atlas Media Solutions is my media marketing company that 100% exists just to serve agriculture. A lot of my time is spent on the road or on a plane, traveling around the country, producing high quality media material for different ag businesses. And so if you guys want to learn more, please feel free to check out our website or follow me on Instagram. But we just wanted to kind of plug this to let you know that because of this business that I run, it allows all of this stuff with Neil and the YouTube channel to happen in the first place. And so, as long as we are sponsor free, I will continue to tell you that this podcast is brought to you by Atlas Media Solutions, and we are proud to say that we are here 100% to serve agriculture. So, that's spiel, guys. I'll let you get back to the podcast. Enjoy. Thanks. Man, it was, yeah. There's still a lot of other stuff that happened in between when I became a farmhand and when I started this company. But like ever since I did farm, I farmed for pretty much the entire year of 2020, which was a super awesome experience. Things slowed down in the winter of the farm. So we wrapped up harvest, we wrapped up a couple little things. And it was basically like, hey, I was either going to go, work for the metalworking shop, the welding shop down the road, because I knew how to weld and I knew how to fabricate some stuff. It's like, okay, I'll pick up some extra, I'll do part-time at the farm, part-time at the fab shop. Or it was like, hey, maybe I should go, find another job. I had a mechanic background, and so I ended up applying at a John Deere dealer. I can say this now, really crappy shop environment, really crappy work environment. I was there for 4 days, and day 3, there is a shouting match between my supervisor and an employee, and the day after that, a guy got fired. And so I was like halfway through day 4, and I was like, I don't want to grow old working in this very toxic environment. And I said, I know there's better places out there, and I know not everywhere is like this. And so I walked in, told my supervisor, like, hey, disrespect, but I was like, I'm either going to quit today or I'm going to quit in 6 months. And like, if I'm being totally honest, I'd like to save you guys some money and not pay me for the next 6 months. And so he said best resignation he'd ever been given, because I'm sure half the time he'd just been flipped off and stormed, like I saw the day before. It was like, okay, a guy just flipped him off and stormed off, and that was the last day of work. He was like, well, I gave him a nice resignation. I was gone. And after that, I ended up meeting a guy who is now my brother-in-law. Behind our shields to plow snow. I have an equipment background. I had worked on machinery enough. I was like, okay, I'm going to transition to this. I enjoy plowing snow. It's not super consistent hours, but because I was a mechanic, I was able to pick up more hours on top of that, fixing equipment in between storms. Anyways, meet this guy. One thing leads to another, becomes one of my best friends. And then I found a drone on Facebook Marketplace for like $400. I had flown drones when I was in high school, and I had a little bit of photo video background from high school. It was something I was really passionate about at the time, and had worked in it shortly after high school. Worked for a boss, kind of got burnt out. Just, it was a super hard production schedule, and so that's why I switched to being a mechanic. I was like, okay, I enjoy working with my hands. I enjoy mechanical things. This is a lot of fun. There's always something to learn when you're taking stuff apart. So I switched over to that, kind of just saying, I'm done with media. I'm never going to do it again. Found this drone on Facebook Marketplace for like $400. And I said, that might be fun. So I bought this old drone on Facebook Marketplace, and I brought it out with me plowing one night. And so I was good friends with this guy I was working for, now my brother-in-law. I was like, hey, I'm going to take a few minutes to just fly the drone around while I plow. And so I was like operating this loader while flying my drone at the same time. It was a super fun time. I get home, pull that footage onto my laptop, and I was like, wow, this looks pretty sweet. This is kind of fun. So I sent it over to my brother-in-law. He's like, dude, that looks pretty good. He's like, you should post this somewhere or something. I was like, okay, that's not a bad idea. Ended up designing a website for him, and that was kind of my first step into media production in general. So I designed my first website, did all the media for it myself. I was like, this is something that might be a good business to get into. And I enjoyed it. It was fun. It was like a combination. I was like, I still get to work. I was enjoying working with my hands and doing all these things, but I was also getting to document it and do fun things with it. And at the time, I was following a guy by the name of Aaron Witt. Some of you guys might know him. He's kind of been a thought leader in the construction excavation space for a while. He started a media company because he had at one point worked for a bunch of excavation companies and said more people need to know about all these things going on behind the scenes, and we need to start solving the workforce problem that the construction industry is currently having with all these guys retiring. Is like, we need more young people in the industry. And so he was just preaching that day in and day out and having, run heavy machinery. I was just following him on Instagram. I was like, huh, this guy is really onto something. He is doing something that people can get behind and people can believe in. And I was like, I think agriculture needs that. I was sitting there and I was looking through his Instagram page. I was looking at all the stuff they're putting out, and I was like, agriculture needs more people in the industry. So we have a workforce problem. Not to mention, like, I enjoy doing this media marketing things. Like, I think there also is a need for high quality media. I scroll through Instagram and I was like, all these big ag businesses are outdated. If they are posting something, they're posting something that was relevant 5 years ago, not this year. Social media changes so fast. I was like, first of all, there's a great market opportunity. I was like, okay, there's very little competition when it comes to like the business side of things. There's lots of guys who will fly their drones around their tractors and make cool tractor videos to post on Instagram. We love you guys. Thank you for posting a bunch of cool tractor videos. It's always fun. But I was like, there's a need for these businesses to be doing this better. And so I was like, I think I can do that better. I enjoy doing this. I have a love for agriculture, and having grown up with no connection to the industry, I was like, I need to make agriculture's name more known in more households. Like, I didn't grow up with that, with it being right outside my back door in California. I was like, I knew nothing about farming. I knew nothing about ranching other than what I'd seen on TV or what the news would tell me. And usually it was bad. Cows are bad. Corn farmers are bad. Soybean farmers are bad. They're killing you. All this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I started farming and I was like, shoot, like, that's all a bunch of bull crap. Like, I can't put up with that. And so anyways, it just every time I'd see a news article, or I even talked to some of my friends from California, I was like, there is a huge disconnect between all these people. And now it's starting to come more into its own, but people on the internet talk so much about, we got to bridge the gap between producer and consumer. We got to do this. We got to do this. But it all just goes into this echo chamber and goes straight up. Agriculture goes straight up. If you say something, it's just going to ping pong from side to side all the way up the funnel of agriculture. Okay. No one outside the industry is really getting it. We have so much content online. We have all these people talking and posting all the time. It's like, oh, there's only 1% of the population's a farmer and it's declining every day. All these farms are being bought out by corporations. Interest rates are so high. And it's just like, you're just complaining about problems that other people in the industry are relating to. It's like, you're not actually connecting with that audience who needs to be hearing those things. And so I was like, okay, I don't know the answer to the problem, but my job now is to figure out how the heck we're going to do that. And so, sorry, I got to breathe, guys. I'm so passionate about this. We talk so much about bridging the gap and doing all these things. Okay. We have these businesses in agriculture that have multi-million-dollar marketing budgets that, no offense to some of these companies, but it just is so poorly spent. It's spent on media that doesn't connect with an audience. It's spent on media that doesn't connect with your customers. It's something that there's just this gap between what we think is working and what actually is. And agriculture's media currently is not working the way I think it should be. There are thousands upon thousands of influencers in every other industry who've figured out how to connect with audiences in a meaningful way. Agriculture needs to make that next jump to figure out how the heck do we can connect with 330 million people who live in the country. And so that's kind of what I've been really focusing on in the past probably 4 or 5 months. And even with Neil's stuff, it's just like, okay, we have these massive platforms with billions of users. Every single person on that platform eats every day. Hopefully, not everyone. Anyways, we all eat every day. We all need to have some sort of connection to our food, right? Like, food and agriculture is something every single human has the ability to relate to. So why aren't they? What are we doing wrong? Because we're not actually connecting those people. And so I've set a goal for my business, Atlas Media Solutions. Like, okay, between me and my customers, I want to reach 100 million people next year. So I would like 100 million views between Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. I think that's very doable. And the reason I put that number out there is because 100 million is a nice step towards the 330 million people who live in the US. Okay, so we need to connect with 330 million people. If we can connect across all platforms with 100 million people, I know some of them are going to be the same. That's a good step in the right direction towards every person in this country having some connection to where their food comes from. Whether they agree with us or disagree with us, I want that connection with those people because they need to know where their food comes from. Because if they don't, well, what's going to happen? Someone else is going to control their food and they're not going to know any better for it. And we've talked about this before on the podcast. When other people control your food, specifically the government, things just don't pan out well, and you don't want that. And so the best way to prevent something like that in a doomsday scenario happening is to connect more people with their food so they understand the importance of knowing where their food comes from, and more importantly, this is what I care about, knowing the people who grow it. Because every time someone insults agriculture on the internet without knowing a farmer or rancher, well, they're just insulting someone who's just as real a human as that person insulting them. So there's so much work that needs to be done, and that's what this business exists to do, is to solve that problem that we are all facing, rather than just complain about it. So
And it is. This is a complete. Clayton. This is one of the great things that I've like when I've got to know him is the vision he has um, for being able to reach an audience. So we have an audience that's inside the agriculture community, like you talk about the echo chamber. It's very easy for other farmers to watch farmer content, but what is more difficult to do is to go outside of the industry and bring in viewers that don't farm day to day or haven't had a background in agriculture, because not everybody is interested in looking at tractors or cows or whatever niche part of agriculture you're in. So, I think part of Clayton's vision is also being able to introduce the characters behind, uh, the commodity, if you will. So, his a big part of what I see is Clayton is a people person. He's very good at talking to new people that he's never met before, and I think he gets people to open up in a way that they aren't normally comfortable opening up because he's maybe easygoing or just his character that he has, and I think through that unique perspective. That I can see him meeting that goal of being able to, bring in the audience that isn't normally an agriculture audience member, um, and talk about that a little bit. Why, like, what you're looking for when you think of really good media, something that a lot of different people can consume across a broad audience. In your opinion, what are you looking for?
I mean, this is something that anyone who works in media marketing can tell you, or who's worked in any sort of film production capacity. Even the videos we're shooting for ag businesses, I literally had an email this morning telling me, hey, this section in this video doesn't fit the story of the video. And so that's the main thing that I think is actually important, and it actually is going to help with that next step of just taking ag media as a whole forward, is that story aspect. All of my best videos on Instagram, and even your Instagram and YouTube, have all focused around tractors. They're cool, they're awesome, but there's a cap, and Neil and I have talked about this. There's a cap to those videos that they can reach. Every once in a while, you'll see a tractor video get over 1 million views, but even then, that 1 million views is very rarely anyone who's not in the industry. And so I'm starting to see this. Okay, there's a ceiling to what tractor content can do on these platforms. And if I know one thing that Hollywood has gotten really good at in making money and having people watch it, it's the stories. Everyone was so invested in all the Marvel movies for so long, and they made so much money, not because every individual film was perfect and great and it had a great story. They worked because there was a larger narrative connecting them all together. And I look at agriculture and our food the same way, of like, there is a larger narrative that really connects every single human being on the planet to each other. Tractors are only going to go so far because most people don't interact with the tractor on a daily basis. Do you know what is going to get that next step there? It's going to be the food that we're talking about, which is great and all, but I think we're still missing the point. Every single human being on the planet has interacted with another human being in their life in some capacity. And there is just an intrinsic connection to other humans that you will never have with an inanimate object. And because of that, I think there is a beautiful opportunity in the world of agriculture to tell these stories that actually matter, to tell the people's stories who are actually growing this food. I could care less about hearing the doomsday stats about, oh, there's only so many farmers left in the world, and every year we're losing more, and corporate this, corporate that. It's like I see all this, and all it does is just go through the echo chamber. I'm like, I don't care about that. I just don't. If I'm gonna watch a documentary on Netflix, it's not gonna be about the doomsday stat about all these people. It's gonna be the people's faces and the people's stories. And you watch any documentary talking about anything, the things that are compelling are the people sharing their stories. It's telling the story of everything that's gone on. And so I think that's kind of where I'm looking towards in the next few years. Is like, okay, my job in serving agriculture, serve ag is our business statement. That's all it is, nothing else, because it might look totally different in 5 years. Right now it's media, but in 5 years, who knows what's going to be. My goal in serving ag in the next few years is to figure out how to tell all these stories that are going on. I actually just made a video clip this morning. It was Zach. You guys have probably seen Zach on the YouTube channel. He's one of the guys around here. He is running the no-till drill. So he's seeding rye, and there's a clip of him. I don't know how I got it, but the light was like just behind him. It was perfect. And Zach is looking forward, and then he looks back at the drill while he's doing it. I was like, that is the best shot I have shot this entire year. Not because it's a beautiful clip, but because it's the only clip I have where I feel like I can genuinely see a story being told. Zach is there in the tractor. He looks tired because it's the middle of harvest, and he is still doing his job at sundown. It's just this wonderful clip. It's like that story that's being told right there is more important to me than any fancy tractor video I shot this entire year, because that's what's actually going to connect people. Because you may not care what's going behind him in the drill or him sitting in the tractor, but we as humans understand that that is a human being who is doing something. Okay. And that's what's actually going to connect us with people who have no idea what agriculture is. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, I get so frustrated with the news, I get so frustrated with all these people not knowing where their food comes from, or this disconnect, it's like, guys, they don't want to hear about the statistics. They don't want to hear about how noble you are for growing food. Even they want to hear about who you are in your story. You don't have to talk to them about farming. Just say, hey, this is who I am as a person. And if you're a farmer or a rancher, it is a very large part of your character, being a farmer or rancher. There is more to your life than that, though. Like, you can talk to people, and I went on a rant on LinkedIn about this recently. Like, I posted a photo of me and my wife on LinkedIn. Basically, because someone had insulted me in the comments the day before, and I was like, you know what? I could respond to this comment hatefully. Not going to help anyone. So what I did was I took a photo of me and my wife, and the caption was, "Hey folks, just remember, people on the internet are real people too." And I told a story about how I have a life outside of my internet shenanigans of posting about farming all the time. That is the best performing post I've had on LinkedIn in a long time. Why? Because I didn't care about the stats. I just told a story. I told a story about how, hey, I'm really passionate about agriculture, but guess what? I have a life outside of this still. I have a wife who I care about dearly. I have friends that I still spend time with. And that post went through the roof compared to my other ones. Why? Because there's a story there and people care, and they can connect with that. They could care less about farming, but they care that, hey, that guy has a life like me. He's doing things that I do. And they notice that and they interact with that and they say, that's cool. That's what's going to take agriculture storytelling to the next level, is saying, hey, these people who are farming, these people who are ranching, these people who are providing our food are just as real a person as I am. And that's what's going to do it. Not the statistics, not the climate change agendas. It's the people and the stories behind them that are going to actually connect this entire generation of people who have no idea where their food comes from back to the people who grow it. And so that's why I'm super excited about like this podcast and the Denton Farms Media. It's like, hey, this is a platform where not only it's not even about me, and that's the best part. Is like, hey, I get to every single day tell the stories of uh, Neil and Blake and Logan and Zach and your dad and Homer and all the other people who work around the farm. I get to tell these stories of these people who are working hard every day, and I get told all the time how funny these guys are, how they want to see more of this person. Why? It's not because of what they're doing; it's because of who they are. And so, anyways, I could go on for such a long time about that. But guys, that's what's going to help. That's what's actually going to do something.
I think this is such a great point. And, when you're looking through scrolling social media, say Instagram, for instance, that's where I have my biggest presence or whatever. And you're just looking through tractor videos. I agree. A lot of times that big equipment videos, like the biggest John Deere or the biggest Fendt or your favorite piece of machinery, you name it, whatever it is, you see those videos that have accumulated just humongous amounts of views, 1 million, 2 million views, or whatever. But when you're looking at that faceless piece of machinery out there, it does look cool, but it's not actually telling the story of agriculture. It's not telling the story of the farmer that's running it or the rancher that's, if you see a rancher roping a cow and or like J.D. Mooney riding a bull and it gets 2 million views, well, you see those actions happening, but you actually don't see the face behind those that are doing that agriculture activity. And what I've noticed is those stories that do I'll give you a good I watched a video the other day, and it was one of the influencers in ag, and they were just doing day-to-day stuff, but it was showing them personally doing it, the activity, and it was a really good storytelling video. And I found myself rewatching it a couple of different times just because you see that person's character in their I think they were tending calves that day or whatever. But you see the love that they had for that animal. You could feel it through the actions that they were showing on camera, and it really brought you in to what that you got a feel for who that person was through that video. And to me, to connect with that audience, we have to see more stuff like that. And this is the great thing about farmers and ranchers, and also people inside the industry like Clayton or your local banker or your local salesman. All these people that are inside the industry, not only as farmers and ranchers, but as support to the farmers and ranchers, they have vibrant characters. They have great stories. A lot of them are very gritty. They pulled themselves up by the bootstraps. And when people are able to see those stories told through video and audio, it paints a picture that is not the picture of the corporate farm that you hear so much about on social media. You see these actual people to be honest with you, most of the farms and ranches in America today are still family owned, or multiple families own them in partnership. And, they're not like a faceless corporation. They're still actually individuals doing these difficult tasks each and every day. And each and every one of them have different skills and talents in their life. They're not, even though they do that agriculture job every day, they may be skateboarders or skiers or hunters or fishermen or bicyclists. I mean, they all have cooks. They all have multiple talents that they enjoy outside of ag. But to make compelling media, I think Clayton's right. That's where we have to go to be able to reach an audience that's just not your fellow farmer or rancher or somebody that is heavily involved in the industry. To pull those people in from outside the industry, we need to show that vibrance of character that each of these individuals have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's kind of the goal of the business long term. The financial side of things when it comes to running like my media marketing company, it's nice having corporations write you checks to produce videos. And I've told, I don't know if I've told Neil this explicitly, like if I can get YouTube to the point where it brings in more money than the marketing company, or it makes more sense, I'd be willing to shut down the marketing company at some point for the sake of sharing more stories. If it's one of those things, if I had to choose one or the other, it's like, man, if I could get the internet side of things to cash flow more properly, I would do that. I would, rather than spending every other week of my life traveling to a farm for X corporation doing this, X company doing this. It's like, no, I'm going to choose to travel to one farm every month, one operation every month, and I'm going to spend a week with these people, and I'm going to create mini documentaries based on that. And that's something that is still in the plans long term. I've talked to some people online about what it would take to fund more content like that, and we are working that direction. But that's the thing, is this, and I tell people this all the time, like YouTube's kind of always been my end goal. If I have any clients listening to this, don't worry. I'm not going to drop you tomorrow and you're going to be like on your own. But the goal will be to either grow this business into something that I can step out of and hand off to someone else so we can keep doing that. Or if we can figure out how to move it effectively without it, being such like a massive cash sink, we would do that, because that's what's in the end, that is what actually matters to me. And the marketing side of the company helps everything, all this stuff happen. Every post I make on social media, every podcast that I record, like, that is not something that's like, oh, it's just developing a brand or like good marketing materials. Like, no, because that's like what I actually care about. I think it's easy to forget when we are scrolling through Instagram or YouTube. It's like, these people do have lives outside of this, and I cannot tell you the amount of the amazing conversations I have with people on my shoots that have nothing to do with this business. They have nothing to do with making videos. It's just talking and listening to people, because I really do enjoy doing that. Like, I have sometimes driven 30, 40 minutes for a shoot before with all the cameras and all the drones in the truck. And I get out and I talk to this guy and I'm like, the cameras and the drones are going to stay in the truck and I'm just going to sit in the combine and I'm going to sit with this guy, because that's what matters. I'm willing to spend that money on gas and quote unquote waste my time, because I would rather sit in that combine and listen to this guy's story, because guys, farming and ranching is really hard. And that is, me listening to these people is way more important than me making a video about them right now. If we can get to the point where we can start having some more production might behind that, awesome, cool. But that's at the end of the day, that's not what matters to me. Running a marketing company does not matter. I tell people all the time, the money is nice, because I can pay my bills off of making videos for a living. That's like one of those things. Like, if I was written a check for $1 million, I would probably not be doing this right now. I would be doing what I'm already doing, just in a capacity that is more service minded towards these people and more beneficial to society as a whole. I would love to start producing Netflix documentaries. I would love to get to the point where we have the production might behind all this stuff to be producing content that is YouTube quality, or sorry, Netflix quality, because there's just such an audience base there. And the only people making any sort of farm related videos at that scale are people who are very openly criticizing the industry. Like, there is just no voice at that level that even comes close to the opposition, that is being put out there. And so we need, as an industry as a whole, more content like that. And whether I'm the guy to make that stuff or not, I'm going to figure out whoever is. If I'm not the guy for it, I'll find the guy who's for it and I'll make sure I can help him do that, because that's what matters. At the end of the day, if I'm behind this camera for the rest of my life making sure this happens, that is okay with me. Because if there's someone better to be put in front of the world, then heck yeah, I'm going to get behind that and we're going to support that, because that's what actually needs to happen.
What I've seen with Clayton is you're not going to find many people with a better eye for capturing moments than Clayton. He's very talented with a camera, and I look at it and I think the sky's the limit for his business and for his vision. And I want to be like, now that I've got to know him and got to watch what he does day to day and producing the media that we put out of this farm. When I first reached out to him, it was over a very talented farm rescue video that I saw that he put out. And, like, I thought for a long time about, taking my farm from just a farm. And, like, I love to farm, but as I get later in my career, I began to grow bored and get burnt out with what I was doing day to day. Not that I'm not passionate about my farm. It just, like, I'm in the office or on the field most of my life. Like, I spend hours and hours each day doing it, and I do love it. But in the like, I'm in the last part of last 20 years of my career now, more than likely. Unfortunately, I'm middle aged, and like, I've just been doing it a long time, and my body's not what it once was, and I'm just tired, and my dad is as well, and that's not this is kind of like, I'm not telling my customers that I'm quitting, because I'm not. They'll kick dirt in my face when I quit farming or whatever. That the day I lay down in the casket, it's the day I quit farming. But I needed something else in my life to because I love uh, to learn and challenge myself. And I saw Clayton's vision through that. This is where talent through the camera is so important, because I could see what he was trying to put out through that video. Like, just watching the video put me in the space of understanding what he was trying to deliver. And I thought, I'd been reaching out to a few different people, looking for somebody to work with. Because, look, at the end of the day, I don't have time or talent enough to be able to produce quality material that can reach a broad audience. I love to talk, and you know, and I do have you know, other talents that I can share in that vision, but not the ability that Clayton had, or anybody that's a talented producer like him. And that's what, when actually found him and felt like, hey, this is the guy that can, you know, tell the story that I want to tell. I reached out, and through that relationship that we've garnered over the last few months, he has, like, it's given me a new passion for telling these stories, and for the future in ag media. I want to be a part of Clayton's journey, and want to be able to. Want to be able to share the stories of not only my farm but others' farms and ranches. So, um, we hope that over the course of time that we gain more audience and more support behind this vision, and that you continue this ride with us, because I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon. I know Clayton doesn't. So
Yeah,
you
and
talk about that a little bit, like, so in the next couple of years, where do you see this going?
oh man, the next couple of years. I mean, there's a lot of places it could go. Currently, the stretch goal I set for 2024, so a month away, not even 2 weeks away as of recording. Probably by the time this comes out, it'll be 2024. That stretch goal is 100 million next year, which Neil and I, in like the past 90 days together, have collectively reached 4 to 5 million already. So I think that goal is very tangible, and I'm not even counting any of the stats from customers I've worked with this past year, and so that's, I think, a very reachable goal. But that's just a purely view based goal. The stretch goal 5 years from now, probably 4 years now, is what my timeline is. I would like to be producing more YouTube content. I would like Denton Farms itself to be, um, in my ideal world, we have someone full time hired whose job is solely to produce Denton Farms content. Yes, we're like just scratching the surface when it comes to like producing quality content. Like, I don't think you guys understands. Like, I probably spend 2.5 days every 2 weeks down here if I have enough time shooting videos, and we still produce a video every week. And that's just like, once again, barely scratching the surface. I probably spend 5 to 6 hours editing that video. Like, the production we could put into this is much higher. And so I would like to see that continue to grow into something that not only is more content on a regular basis, but is more quality, because the general audience wants quality, especially in the YouTube space right now. Quality is what's winning, and we've seen tremendous growth on the YouTube channel for what it is, and for how frequently we're uploading. I feel like it's going pretty well. The goal would be for that to continue to grow into its own thing. My goal personally is to continue to be the overseer of all that content production, but I say more importantly, I'd like to be moving towards creating some sort of studio setting where we can start producing more topic related videos, and we can produce more hosted content. So rather than just on the run, instead of just the run and gun farm and sort of stuff, we are either having people sit down and help write like well researched scripts for these things that are genuinely informative, that are going to be interesting to a wide range of people, as well as be able to employ hosts and camera people to do that, as well as on top of that, using between Denton Farms and whatever this future channel slash studio may be, to travel on a hopefully monthly basis, bi-monthly basis, depending on the team members, to create regular stories of different people around the country and even the world, of just telling their story a little more, just trying to shed light on it. I mean, there's a billion different things we could make videos on when it comes to farming. There's just so many different things. And the sky, like Neil was saying, the sky is really the limit with that sort of stuff. Uh, the biggest hurdle comes down to cash flow. I know it's really boring listening to people talk about money, and like I've been very blessed where I don't really feel like I'm a greedy person. Like you can ask my wife and I, we give a very large portion of our money away on a regular basis. Like my wife and I do not live very frivolously by any means. We just give a lot away, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity to do stuff like that. But the reality is, cash has to come in, and that's
Sure.
why the marketing company is going to continue to exist. Whether that grows into its own thing down the road, be able to use my talents in video production, as well as my ability just to network and run a business. It allows all the cash for these things to happen. Guys, like producing a YouTube video every single week, even with Neil's money going into it, is not a profitable endeavor. It's a very heavy time sink for me. The reason I do it is because I'm like, hey, this is actually something that I can really see growing and having genuine impact. I can produce marketing videos for the rest of my life. I can create marketing videos for the rest of my life and make a very nice career out of that. The stretch goal would not be that. The stretch goal would be to move into a place where all of my energies can go into creating content that does connect with a wider audience and does genuinely serve the ag industry, not just in their marketing needs, but in a broader sense of society as a whole. I think there's just so much connection that can be built there, and I want to have a part in that. I want to have a part in helping that connection happen. Whoever or wherever it may be, I want to have some sort of part in creating that because I love it and I am super passionate about it. And I'm like, my one of my favorite things to do is listen to problems farmers and ranchers are facing and put it on a list and say, all right, I am not going to have the problem or the solution to every single one of these problems, but it's like, you know what? If I can make their lives easier while they face these problems, I want to do that. And so my goal is just to start connecting more people back to their food. And so, 5-year goal, I'd like to be reaching the entire U.S. population, at least numbers wise. I'd like to have some sort of studio where we're producing high quality content that's really going to connect with a wider audience. And then I would like to be putting out annual farm documentaries in some capacity that could hopefully make it onto Netflix or Amazon Prime or some category that's just like, hey, you know what? If no one's going to play with the big dogs when it comes to ag media production in the industry, I want to be the guy to do that because I think there's some imposter syndrome of like, well, we're salt of the earth people. We're gonna focus on growing our food. We're gonna focus on doing these things. It's like, you know what? We need you to focus on that. And if it's my job to help tell that story to the wider world, I want to figure out how to do that. And I think that's the other thing. Some of my other posts I've done really well is talking about how there's this disconnect between people think the farming and ranching industry is 10 years behind in everything. And when it comes to media, yeah, I think they are 10 years behind, but there's some like the technology in this space is wild. I mean, there's innovations coming out in the agriculture industry, and I'm like, man, what mad scientists do they have working for them that came up with that crazy idea and it works? I see all that stuff. I'm like, okay, they can play in every other category, but when it comes to media, yeah, there is a little bit of slack. It's like, you know what? If someone's going to dump millions of dollars into documentaries to go on Netflix to bash agriculture, well, I want to be the guy who's going to say, I'm going to pour millions of dollars into creating content that's going to be for agriculture. If that's the battle that the world wants to play, then I'll go up to bat because I care about that. And once again, like, I think it's totally reasonable. That's the other thing too, is like there is just so much cash that flows to the agriculture industry. I mean, what I charge clients is pennies on the dollar for their annual revenue. Pennies on the dollar. So there's a lot of money and there's a lot of funding that could go behind it. The tricky part is navigating the integrity of it all. Is like, okay, where do we draw the line of, hey, who's sponsoring this? Who's putting their money towards this? At what point do we draw the lines? Like, hey, you're actually just, that, and that's an issue a lot of ag publications have right now. There's a lot of agriculture magazines and websites that are basically just sponsor pieces for some large ag businesses. They used to be super like heartfelt and integral, and you look at it and I'm like, okay, that was probably paid off by someone. It's just one of those things that's everywhere. That's every industry. It's just like, okay, we can't be that, but we need money. How do we figure that out? And so we're working that out. There's so many, like, crowdfunding's a super like compelling option, just having people pledge money for that, but also like we will start moving towards selling more hats and sweatshirts and things like that. Not because we want to take advantage of people, but it's just like, hey, we need cash to make this happen. If people are going to believe in that, like, I would rather you get a t-shirt and be able to say you support it, and we'll take that profit and reinvest it.
Sure. I mean, I just want to point out that it is like when you're producing quality content, it's very expensive, and it's very time consuming as well. So, like, it's important to at some point be able to cash flow the business to to make everything work. But we're here for the long haul,
Hmm.
and I want everybody to realize that we're not just doing this for for views alone. We are doing this to reach an audience that's outside of the ag industry. We also want to provide value for the
Hmm.
producers here. But I share Clayton's big vision goal in it, exactly. And like when one of the very first conversations he had, and he's like, "Where can you see this going?" And I said, Chip and Joanna Gaines size, and I'm not exaggerating that. Like, I feel like if we, cohesively put together very high quality character based content, that there's no place for it to go but up. And it is amazing to me how many new viewers and views that we've been able to receive just over the last couple months, stepping the content game up.
Yeah.
And I'd also like to just give us a shameless plug that we have some very interesting podcast guests that are going to be with us over the next couple of weeks and months. And also, like, this is a very early
Hmm.
part of the greater goal of a burgeoning ag business, a new ag business in video production and podcasting. And, we're going to be at AgCon coming up in the next couple of weeks. And if you would,
It's FarmCon,
a
not AgCon.
FarmCon, I'm sorry, FarmCon. My bad. FarmCon in the next couple of weeks. And, we are open to new ideas, or maybe, a future employee with the same vision in mind that could help us reach the audience we're looking to
Yeah,
reach.
yeah. And right now, and I'll plug this out there. My main research, and there's so much that you guys don't see. I spend so much time listening to podcasts and also just researching other people. It's really easy to look at what everyone else in the ag industry is doing. All these tractor videos that get millions of views. Like, no offense to you guys making tractor videos. I don't care how many millions of views your tractor video got. I care about the guy who got 30, 40 million views, not talking about farming at all, and said, okay, what did they do that worked? Because if we're going to reach those audiences, we have to be thinking bigger. And I talk about this in an upcoming um, ad for the Atlas Media side of the business. Like, we have to be pushing boundaries. That's okay. We got to wrap this up because you have to be in a Zoom meeting in a few minutes. But guys, we got to be pushing boundaries and thinking way bigger than we are now. If that's my challenge to anyone listening, if you're like, oh my gosh, I'm behind what these guys are talking, like, first of all, thank you, appreciate it. Buy a hat, it helps us. We appreciate all that, but the real big thing I need you guys to be thinking about is, like, how can we push this industry as a whole forward and into a broader light? It's not, I don't need you to write me a check. I don't need you to just hit the subscribe button. Like, do those things, they're great. Don't write me a check. Just hit the subscribe button. I need you guys to be thinking about, how the heck are we actually going to connect with these hundreds of millions of people? I don't need everything else. We need to figure out how we're going to do that. And I'm going to keep working on that. I literally have like a 5-foot piece of paper strapped across my office wall right now, where it's just 100 million written at the top. And I just write down every idea I have, that how the heck are we going to do this? And there's case studies on there. I'm researching, okay, what can we do? Can we try? What can we experiment with? I pour over analytics. I do all these things. Why? Because we need to reach those people. And what we're doing now is not working. So we got to figure out what's going to work. And so, if you guys have pieces of content that you like, and you're like, man, like, this is super interesting to me, this is fascinating, just in any industry at all, send it to me on Instagram. You guys can find me at clayton.atlas. Send me those videos on Instagram, because I'll pour over them. I'm going to look at them and I'm going to say, okay, what's working about these? It's the same, and there's no such thing as individuality when it comes to creativity and artistic vision. It's just, how many different people have you pulled all these little different things to and putting them all together. The greatest artists are the ones who steal all of everyone else's best ideas and they put it into one thing. And so that's what we're trying to do. We got to take what works over here, and we're going to put it all together, and we're going to figure out how it's going to work. And so Neil's got to go, guys. We appreciate you guys listening. The sky's really the limit when it comes to this sort of stuff. We really do appreciate the time you guys have given us. But yeah, this is something that we see being so much bigger than just the two of us sitting at a table right now. I've got another full-time guy coming on. I've got multiple part-time workers that are all craving for more work, and so I'm starting to build the infrastructure to make these things happen. So now the biggest thing is finding more clients to work with, which we were talking before the podcast. Like, I'm already booked until June next year, which is crazy. Like, not having pretty much any free weeks like in our production schedule to be taking on more work is a wild place to be. And so we're moving towards that direction. The biggest thing you guys can do is just show your support, share this with people. If you believe in the vision, let us know that, comment on the video, send us some love on Instagram. Like, we want more people involved in this, because that's what's going to help. And
Yeah,
so,
that's what I would like to share too. Is if you enjoy our content, share it with your friend. Comment on our videos, share our videos, and we appreciate each and every one of you. We appreciate the negative comments. We appreciate the positive comments.
Yes, we do.
I think it furthers agriculture as a whole. Just to be discussing topics that are relevant. Also, we'd love to hear from you just individually through DMs. If you have content ideas, or you'd like to be on our show, or you'd like to be a part of our team, and and you have a super great idea, or you're super talented, reach out to us and let us know. Hey, we're open to all kinds of different ideas, and we're excited about the future here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll get I think on this one, I'll probably try to get a Q&A form up on either my website or Spotify. Spotify has that. You guys can start asking questions, and we'll do a Q&A episode soon too, of just like, hey, what do you guys want to know? What do you guys want to see? We want this to be more than just us sitting here and talking. We want this to be a conversation. And so we appreciate you guys listening. Like, share, subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks.